Hello, Eloise here with the gorgeous Tracey. Hello, Tracey.
Hi, Eloise. So good to see you.
Yay! So we are here to talk about BodyTalk Module 6, as it used to be called, Macrocosmic BodyMind. And Tracey, do you want to give some background in case body talkers don't know who you are? But I'm sure everyone does by now.
Absolutely.
You are infamous.
I'm based in Canada. I've been teaching with the BodyTalk Association since 2009, and I now teach the whole core curriculum, and I really enjoy each of the modules and the nuances that they bring to the BodyTalk system. And I used to enjoy traveling around the world, seeing all of you in person, and now we've been working over Zoom over the last year and a half. But I have to say, it's brought some wonderful, wonderful gifts to all of us, I think, in making this education accessible and bringing students from different matrices around the world together in classes. And it's been an amazing journey. And I've really, really enjoyed sharing this information over this new format. I think that we see, the system itself evolving, and the consciousness of the system growing and expanding just out of the developments of the last year and a half. And it's been quite a journey. I'm really excited to see new practitioners coming into the system all the time, and so many practitioners returning to the material again, simply because it's more accessible to them, easier to monitor on a weekend, and less expensive because travel is not an element of it. And it's been quite a journey. I'm really excited to now be teaching Module 6 and Module 9 as well.
Yay, great. And I've had loads of fun meeting loads of new body talkers all over the world and connecting with new people. So, yeah, it's great. So, can you talk a little bit about this class and what's covered?
Absolutely. So Module 6 is known as Macrocosmic BodyMind, as you mentioned. And in the BodyTalk system, we embrace the concept of downward causation, that we understand that when we're working with a client, we're not just working with the physical body, we're working with every aspect of their health and their healing, including their consciousness, the influence of the mind, the influence of emotion. But we're also looking in every session at the influence of the environment. And I think this class gives us some incredible tools to look at the bigger patterns in the macrocosm, those environmental cycles and shifts and phases of development in our life, and how they impact us every day, right, every year, and throughout our lifetime. And I think this class really gives us an understanding of the themes that influence and evolve through our life, and how those themes can be impacting our experiences, how they can be impacting our health. In this class, we also look at epigenetic factors, so things that we've brought with us, rather through our inheritance, and how they may be impacting every aspect of our own health and wellness, but even our genetic expression. So I think this is a really beautiful module to help us to understand the themes that tie us all together, right? These themes of consciousness that each and every one of us see the world through, and how the bigger themes in the macrocosm are reflected here in the microcosm. And it expands on the concepts of Module 3, when we understand that, we are all connected in so many ways, and not just to one another, but to every aspect of this reality that we experience. And I think this module helps us to understand those natural patterns in our life, the phases of development we all go through, the very important external influences as they are a reflection of internal experiences and expressions.
And there are so many different influences that we can have. It's mind-boggling in a way. So it's nice to have some structure to actually delve into those areas and what is affecting our clients.
Absolutely. And, John always talks about this as being consciousness-based healthcare. And I think that when we look at the material in Module 6, the influence of a variety of philosophies, right? Eastern philosophy coming from Chinese medicine, and also from Advaita Vedanta, and we see the same themes of consciousness influencing and impacting us all. And, I always look at these themes of consciousness as ways that we see ourselves and we see our world. And we start to realize in this work how connected we all are, right? How similar we are. And not even just, as I mentioned, connected to each other, but how that outer world and those themes of consciousness are expressed back at us. And I think this module really expands on those concepts, as I mentioned in module 3, and gives us a new vocabulary to talk about that to our clients and to help them to understand the ebbs and flows of, every breath, every day, every year, and a lifetime as well.
Yeah, because everything's got a frequency to it. And so everything is interacting, and we don't, like, people just going about their everyday life don't even think about the energy of the day and the year and the month. It's incredible when you really dive into it, what's going on. It's cool.
Yeah. And I think that it definitely helps us to see the relationship of as we say, the macrocosm, the largest patterns in this universe, or that we see out here, is merely a reflection of what's happening in here. And we cannot disconnect them, right? They are one and the same, in just a different level of experience. And so I think this module definitely helps students, practitioners, and then, practitioners speaking to clients, help them to understand that we don't live in a bubble, right? We're constantly interacting with our environment, and there are many influences at play in our life. And when we understand them, we can better understand our experiences. We can better understand at times the challenges of our life, how to become adaptable to those challenges, how to describe, I would say, certain influences in our life.
And it's key being able to, and the one thing I know you're great at is teaching practitioners how to relate things to their clients, and it's so key that they understand it. It's,
Yeah, I think this module probably is one of the ones that most practitioners have found difficult to talk about. And that's a very important aspect of teaching for me, is finding a language where we can communicate with ease to our clients so they understand at some level of significance. So it's really about bringing it back to a level of simplicity. And I know myself, the first time I was introduced to a lot of these concepts in the more advanced modules, the challenge in the beginning of bringing them into my practice didn't come down to me understanding the techniques, but came down to me being comfortable explaining it in a simplistic way to a client. And so that's something as a teacher that I emphasize in every class, and especially this one. I really enjoy helping students to find the aha moments of how easy it is to really explain to a client these outer reflections of inner health and how they impact and what they could mean. And it really is quite simple when we bring it down to the core of what each of these concepts represent. So rather we're talking about the themes of consciousness represented by planets, or represented by the 12 houses or 12 phases of development in our life and how they cycle through our experience, or we're talking about the vortices in the body and how they express our relationship to ourselves and to our environment, and how they impact our relationship to our environment. Maybe we're talking about inherited predisposition and where that's come from and how that can impact us in our life. So bringing it down to the simplicity of understanding, but also communicating, I think is a real key piece of the puzzle to bringing this content to life and really integrating it in our practice.
Yeah, and it brings so much depth to clinic. For me personally, when I first took this module, it felt like a bit like, oh, here's some data and stuff to play with. It felt like, I don't know, it felt quite dry, if you know what I mean. And it's only since I worked with it and through clinic over the years kind of developed some awareness and understanding of it that I've gone, wow, this is so key. It's So I think, if you have...
Yes, I think there's sometimes a misunderstanding of the content of this class. So in this class, we're going to look, as I mentioned, at some of the larger patterns in the universe and how that's reflected in the inner universe, including even the arrangement of organelles in our cells. Right? They reflect these fractal larger patterns in our universe. So the movement of anything that influences, the ocean that we're a part of, influences that internal experience as well. And, whether we're talking about the planets and what they represent, or we're talking about the astrological houses and what they represent, or we're talking about the Chinese clock and the 24-hour energy cycle and what it represents. When we bring it back down to its core, every one of those philosophies is just talking about the way we see ourselves and the way we see our world. And, you know, it really is an expansion on understanding perception and what influences how we perceive. And it's not a class about astrology. It's a class about macrocosmic patterns, right? The patterns we see out there and how they are a reflection of what's happening.
Yeah. And just opening up a whole toolkit of not only how to explain all of this to your clients, but a toolkit for changing things. You know, that bringing that awareness and that light to so many different angles and things that can influence us. Ooh.
Yeah, I think like every class, the material of this course is for us first. You know, and I think it brings a lot of insight and understanding of, you know, what certain challenges in life mean and how they're influencing our growth and what they're leading us to. And we can really apply this information to our practice, right? And the phases of development in a practice. We can apply it to relationships, to our business, to our own health, to our understanding of this system. We can look at how each one of these themes and phases influences us in every aspect of our life. And I find this one really empowering for understanding the flow in life and being able to work with that and use it as a tool as opposed to feeling it's an obstacle.
Yeah. And what's coming to mind is when we get stuck in stuff, you know, you get stuck in a rut or you get stuck in the same Groundhog Day type thing. It's like being able to have that awareness that, you know, what the influences are that might be sticking you or holding you back in your clinic, in your life, in your projects, and, you know, it's
exactly great. And I think one of the greatest gifts of this technique, or this particular module rather, is what we call the 8th chakra technique, which is looking at really like an inherited active memory, right? It's something that we may not have experienced, but we hold the energy of it, and it impacts our experiences and it impacts our genetic expression. So we have a wonderful technique that's a combination of active memory and cellular repair together that allows us to look at where do these pieces come from, these predispositions, and how do we support resolving those active memories in a similar concept of, you know, our own experiences and the charged emotions we have around it, but realizing we don't come into the world as a blank slate. We bring energies with us from our own family, and you know, how does that impact our experience? And a wonderful technique to be able to identify things that perhaps were causing obstacle or charge or even ill health, and how we can support the balancing of that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite techniques.
Definitely.
If you can have favorites, I don't know. But you know, it's great for blasting through stuff that you didn't even know was there. It's, you know, because so much of this is beyond our conscious awareness. It's great. So is there anything else that you bring to this class? I mean, I'm excited to take the class with you, Tracey, anyway, because of all the stuff that you always bring to a class. But is there anything?
Well, I think in this one, as I mentioned, I really like to emphasize the ease of communication about the significance of the new techniques and the tools that you're learning in this class, and how we relate it to our clients and the significance it could mean for them in their life, how they could see that change show up for them. I like to spend some time on the practicality and the ease of using the material, so that students can come out of the class the very next day and be using it in their practice. So I tend to try to drill it down to its simplicity, and help them to see how it can show up with ease in their practice, and even more importantly, the excitement of being able to communicate it. Because I think a lot of times people will steer away from things that are they're not sure how to explain. And I know that this material is a material that can cause that. So for me, that's a big emphasis in this particular module. And I also bring it back to our downward causation model and see, where does this fit into, right? What level are we working at when we're working with these new tools? And how could it show up for a client in their life? So that's an area I definitely focus on. And I really enjoy introducing people to these concepts that are at play in their own life every day, and giving them a totally different look at that constant interactive and interdynamic relationship between their inner environment and their outer world.
Yeah, they're not separate.
That's for sure.
That's for given. Yeah. But also for people like thinking about remonitoring this class, I think for me, there's bound to be things that I haven't thought about in years or new concepts to bring in, but it's going to be a good one to revisit as well, I think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think a lot of us, when we were first on our journey of learning, we're so excited about taking material. And so we quickly go through the classes if we can. And a lot of times, we may pick up about 30% of the material because that's what our brain is capable of picking up on. And when we take it into practice, there'll be certain things that stand out for us and certain things that we always go to and other things that we tend to forget about. And every time we sit on a new class, regardless of the module, you're hearing it from a different perspective. And so I think it's incredibly valuable. And this is a very rich class, like all BodyTalk classes, with new concepts and new ideas and new vocabulary. And so I always think it's incredibly beneficial to come back to the material again, because as a practitioner or as a student, the first time it's all new, it's like hearing a new language. So there'll be certain things that stand out for you. But when you come back to it the next time, now you have a level of practical understanding because you started to put it to work. And the things that did not land so well the first time really tend to start to grab your attention the second time or the third time you sit in. And I find that these classes are just such a wealth of information that every time you have the opportunity to sit in again, you hear it from a brand new set of ears.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, I'm excited. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with the class, or I think we've covered quite a bit?
I think so too. And I think a lot of times we imagine that it's just new techniques we're learning, but in this class we're going to learn how to use new satellites in new ways. We're going to look at how to use a very unique way of holding the energy of a session. Or a series of links or a series of formulas. So we're giving some interesting tools as well in the form of influence, or what I should say is representing a certain theme as it shows up in a session as a whole. So there's a lot of not just new areas on the protocol chart to visit, but new ways to work with satellites, and definitely new ways to work with phases of development and how that we might be working within that phase for a session or for a series of links or formulas. And those are wonderful tools, very, very useful tools that influence or can influence every session.
Yeah. Cool.
We do have this class scheduled next year with you, Eloise, coordinating. We're looking forward to that. And it's in Greenwich Mean Time. So hopefully it will appeal to our European students, but also our North American students or our South African students.
And yeah, it's going to be a good time zone for a lot of people. I was going to say about prerequisites. Can we just cover what the prerequisites are for the class?
Of course, yes. So of course, fundamentals is a prerequisite along with the advanced procedures course is the prerequisite for this one. I think it's really useful if you have module 3, although it's not a prerequisite. So it's a build on a lot of those themes, but if you're a new student and you're coming out of fundamentals, you do have to have the advanced procedures course, which is available on Parama campus. It's an online class, and it is a requirement for every advanced module, with the exception of module 5. That's the only one where we continue to work with the basic procedure. But something that all students should know, they also need to have an active IBA membership. A standard membership is okay if they're not yet practicing. But they do need that membership in order to register for any advanced class.
Cool. Perfect. So we have the class coming up in English time, British time or Ukadian time, whatever we're calling it, on the 12th and 13th of February 2022. I'm excited. So there is an early bird, which is running till the 12th of January, she says off the top of her head, because my post-it note fell on the floor. But I will have all the details of the class and links to where you can sign up with the video. So thank you, Tracey.
Excellent. You're so welcome. It's always a pleasure.
Yay! I'm excited to coordinate this class for you and revisit the material myself.